Please welcome Program Committee Member and Moderator Doug McLeod and the Risks and Benefits of Energy Storage panel.
Aloha kako. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. My name is Doug McLeod, and I've been privileged to be on the program committee since the beginning of the conference. And this year my role is to moderate a pretty interesting topic here. We're going to talk about energy storage, and we've titled this The Risks and Benefits of Energy Storage, but we're actually in light of the optimistic and hopeful approach that people have been talking about, we're going to do it the opposite and focus on the benefits first. We've got a great panel today, and I'm going to introduce them, but I was trying to think, over the years, how do I look at data points, and I was looking at the education of this panel, and it really got my attention. So on this panel, we have Oxford University, Columbia University, and the Naval Academy at Annapolis. And that's not even all the degrees that this group has. So let me go ahead and start introducing them. Brad Rockwell, Chief Operating Officer at KIUC, and that's the Kauai Island Utility Cooperative. And I'm sure if you're in the energy space in Hawaii, you don't need an introduction to the fact that they've regularly exceeded 100% renewables during daytime operation, and Brad has been responsible with the rest of the folks over there for a lot of that. So he's going to be talking to us about the pump storage project on West Kauai, and we're looking forward to that. Ashley Henderson, Principal Project Manager at STEM Incorporated, and Ashley's joining us from the Bay Area today. She's got a lot of expertise in the California programs related to storage, VPP, DR, all these sorts of programs. And so the idea for our panel is that Brad's going to be talking about a utility scale storage project. We're going to be looking at some of the benefits from that. Ashley's going to be talking about C&I, commercial and industrial projects. Our third speaker, Joti, is with Rising Sun Solar. He's the Chief Revenue Officer. And Rising Sun is a well-known company in Hawaii involved on a number of islands. And he's going to be talking about some of the existing battery programs at the residential level and kind of looking at the economics of doing that. So, the benefit we're going to talk about there is primarily economic. Once we've covered those three presentations, we do have one other section we're going to go through at the end. And we wanted to talk a little bit about risk. There's a couple things where, this morning, Shelley was talking about how sometimes when other people were coming to Hawaii, they hear about things and are surprised. And part of our job on the program committee is to do the flip side too, and to identify some things that have been perceived as risks or become issues, in this case in Florida and New York. And these just weren't things that got a lot of publicity. So our purpose in those final video presentations is just to highlight a few risks that you may not have heard about. So that's our general intro, and we're going to go ahead and turn this over now first to Brad to talk about the West Kauai project. Go ahead, Brad.
Hey, thank you, Doug. Good afternoon, everyone. Lovely crowd out there. Many of you know me, but for those of you who don't, I'm Brad. I'm over from Kauai. I'm going to talk to you just like 5 slides on our West Kauai energy project, some of the challenges we have on Kauai. So, as Doug mentioned, we are running almost every sunny day for a few hours on those days at 100% renewable. Today it was about 3.5 hours. We've gone as long as 10 hours in any one day, so that was from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. without a drop of fossil fuel or oil burned. And but we're still have this nighttime problem where there's no solar resource at night, and even the amount of energy we can store in our batteries can just get us through the evening peak and then can provide a little bit of power at night. So we have a lot of oil burning that we're still doing in the nighttime. So we really need longer duration storage to help get us to crack that last nut that we have at night. This is just a quick snapshot of what our most recent full year's energy mix was. So we still have quite a bit, 40% of oil that we need to offset. Like I said, most of that's coming at night. Some of it is still coming on, daytime, especially cloudy, rainy days, which happen occasionally over on Kauai. So our West Kauai Energy Project is in late stage development. It has received approval from the Public Utility Commission. It did receive a finding of no significant impact on the environmental assessment that we submitted to DLNR. And what it involves is fairly complicated. I'll try my best to kind of walk you through this slide, and this is kind of the money slide that we'll spend the most time on. But there's 3 existing reservoirs that are kind of left over from the sugar plantation era on the west side of Kauai. If you're familiar with it, if you've been up to Kauai State Park, you know that you go from about sea level up to about 3,500, almost 4,000 feet elevation in that area. And way up at the top, if you can see those numbers 1, 2, and 3, right where the blue lines kind of begin up and to the left on the slide, are some existing stream diversions that were put in place by the plantation. And so the project proposes to redesign those to make them more environmentally friendly, and so that we can always ensure continuous stream flow, Malkin and Mackay, and then take sort of the high waters from those when we get the rainy times or the high water times. We'll take that into the existing Kauai ditch, run it over to the Pu'ulua Reservoir, which will need to have significant work done to improve the dam, which is not in great condition. The reservoir is actually limited in capacity right now. We'll increase the capacity of that, and that upper reservoir will provide bulk long-term storage for the project. We won't be changing the level of that every day, but it'll sit there as a big fuel tank, if you will, for the project. And it'll provide increased recreational benefits for the community. And then from there, we'll take some water down. Roughly the same amount of water that's going into Pu'ulua Reservoir will come out every day. So like I said, that level in that reservoir will kind of remain constant. And we'll run that water down to provide some irrigation to Department of Hawaiian Homelands and some other users. And then we'll generate, now we're down to about step 8 and 9 on that slide, we'll generate about 4 megawatts from the hydro turbine, which is at Pu'uopai Reservoir. Pu'uopai is the middle reservoir, around 1,500 feet elevation. And then at that point, we get into the pure pumped hydro storage project, or portion of the project, where we'll then have a large penstock that runs down to the Mana Plain, where 11 and 12 are, and we'll have a 20 megawatt hydro turbine. And of course, we'll be exhausting, if you will, that water into the Mana Reservoir. And we'll be using a solar photovoltaic array to basically pump water up from Mana to Pu'uopai every day and then run it down at night. And that amount of water will be roughly, on average, about 10 to 12 hours of 20 megawatts. So that is enough to get us through our nighttime period and offset much of that remaining oil that we're burning. This project will hopefully enable us to extend our 100% periods from a few hours each day to an entire 24-hour period, multiple 24-hour periods, and just to continue kind of growing on that and eventually getting to the point where we're doing this all year long as 100% renewable. Some of the benefits you can see here on the slide. It's a legacy project. Now a project like this will last 50 or 100 years. The solar price is very low. The all-in cost, even with the pump storage and the hydro, is still below the current cost of oil-fired generation. So it is going to save our members on Kauai a significant amount of money. It complements the significant amount of solar resources that we have already. And a lot of jobs, a lot of construction, economic benefits that come with this. There's a lot of benefits for our partners, Department of Hawaiian Homelands, the state, whether it's Department of Land and Natural Resources or Agribusiness Development Corporation. And of course, it reduces about 8 million gallons of oil being burned every year, with a huge amount of reduction in CO2 as well. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, that's what we're all trying to do, right? So we just got to get this thing going, and we'll almost be there on Kauai. And so we're really proud of it, really excited about this project. Our joint development partner is AES, who you've heard from here in this conference today. And then, as I said, our partners with the landowners are ADC, DLNR, and DHHL. And that's all I've got on this project. So thank you.
I know we'd like you to go back to the one slide with the drawing, because I know we've got a couple follow-up questions there. So
Okay.
let's see if we can get that to go back to your slide 4. And while we're waiting for that, one of the things that really interested us about this project, you know, when you hear about pump storage hydro, most of the time you're envisioning kind of a closed loop system.
Microphone, Doug.
And up. Oh. You know, when we talk about pumped hydro, one of the things that really interested us here is, you know, we think about a closed loop system, and we have to get the water up to the upper reservoir, and we're fighting gravity all the way. So when you look at the round trip efficiency of pumped storage hydro, a lot of times it's not that great. But you know, what these folks have done here is a very interesting combination. So the water that's going into that upper reservoir is a mix of what's been pumped up plus just what's coming down through the river. And they have two separate points, you know, where they're generating power. So that's more of a speech than a question. And we'll see if we can pull this back up for you.
Yeah, I think we have to ask them to put the presentation back up, and then if you guys in the back can do that, and then I can navigate to the right slide. Right there.
So could you just answer a couple questions about design philosophy? And so first, what are you all thinking in terms of the mix in that upper reservoir? I mean, how much of that water is supposed to be pumped up versus coming in from the river? What is the goal here?
Well, the upper is only going to have the water diverted from the stream. So that will be as you can see on the slide, up to 11 million gallons rolling average. Sure. Be really funny if I just point to the thing here that nobody can see.
Says the man who couldn't remember the microphone.
Yeah. Yeah, right here, 11 million gallons coming in from the stream diversion. And then, so all the pumping is happening down here, actually. This is just more like a traditional hydroelectric project all the way down to this point, and then the pumping is going to go between here from the solar array that's located here.
I want to ask one other question that we haven't talked about batteries in here, but you know, a lot of pumped hydro projects don't involve batteries. You all have made a design philosophy decision. Can you explain what's the purpose of the batteries in this system, and how does it relate to the project?
Yeah, and I didn't really mention, it's got a small battery, 2-hour battery. Most of the projects that are going in nowadays with solar in Hawaii have about a 4-hour battery. But we, you know, originally we thought it would be a really elegant design to just power the pumps via DC motors direct from the DC output of the panels. But, you know, the variability of photovoltaic output in Hawaii is pretty significant because of the frequent passing clouds. So we ended up having to go with a more traditional AC design. And then once we went to that, we knew we needed a small battery to maintain constant pumping power, constant power for the pump, so we're not starting and stopping a number of pumps all day long. So we'll essentially every day start, as the sun's coming up, we'll start with the batteries empty, and you know, the lower reservoir full, the middle one empty. And as the sun comes up, we'll start taking whatever solar power we can direct to grid, because if we're burning oil, then we'll take that to grid to offset oil. At some point, we're going to be 100% renewable. We're not burning any oil. All those machines are off. And we'll be charging the battery. And then as we get down to where we really can't take any of that dispatch to the grid, we'll just start turning on pumps and pumping water uphill. And we'll have to sort of balance the state of charge on the battery with the number of pumps that are on to keep that in balance. And then, of course, in the evening, as the sun goes down, we're going to We're going to start dispatching that solar energy direct to grid again, then take it from the battery, and then eventually we won't be pumping anything uphill. We'll turn the system in the opposite direction and run the water down through the hydro turbine and do that all night long, and then just start over again.
Thank you for the explanation. Do either of you have any questions you want to just ask while we got Brad up here? Or we can move on, but I just want to give you all a chance to.
Less a question and more just congratulations.
Thank you.
Ashley, do you want to go ahead, or do you have any questions for Brad, or should we talk about C&I?
I think it's a very cool sounding project, and but I don't have any questions. So.
Well, thank you, Brad. Let's go ahead and start our next presentation on commercial and industrial.
Thanks. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to give a little intro to STEM and to kind of the C&I space and the different benefits that batteries can provide. As people have talked about, we do need an all of the above solution to address climate change, and so this is one of those pieces. So STEM is a global leader in AI-driven clean energy solutions. We were founded in 2009, so we've been around for over a decade. We have over 1 billion hours of runtime data, which we've used to train our artificial intelligence software that we call Athena. And we use it to optimize different grid benefits and customer values when we operate battery storage. We were recently named the largest operator of storage virtual power plants in North America, which is, you probably know, but when you have a bunch of batteries that you can operate together, you can use them as a virtual power plant. We've also been in Hawaii for quite some time. Most of our systems are on the mainland, but we do have a presence here. We've been here since 2015. We worked with the HECO Shines DOE program to develop a couple of systems with HECO. And those systems participate in FastDR, and we have a number of systems that are going to be coming online that will be doing the battery bonus program. And we also have a local distributor partner here, Inter-Island Solar, who helps us to serve the local C&I developer space. So what do we do and why do we need batteries? As has been mentioned, with renewables increasing on the grid, there will be this intermittency that needs to be addressed with storage, and clean energy optimization is needed to stabilize the grid. So we use artificial intelligence and machine learning to maximize the operation of these distributed energy resources. And those benefits can be distributed to end users like project developers, utilities, customers, and the grid. Energy optimization can provide many different benefits, including lower energy costs for utility customers. So we help to lower their monthly bill by charging when energy is cheaper and discharging when it's more expensive. Storage also helps with stability of the grid, can provide voltage support and other kinds of distribution and transmission support. Storage also has a lot of potential to help reduce carbon emissions. It has kind of two ways that it can work at that. One would be by avoiding the deployment of new peaker plants and dirtier generation sources, and the other is by directly addressing the grid GHGs by charging when grid energy emissions are high, when they're low, and discharging when they're high. And then, as we mentioned, the intermittency problem with solar and wind, when there's no sun, no solar, and no wind, then you can rely on your storage to even things out. Some of you may have seen this before. It's the Rocky Mountain Institute wheel, and it has a summary basically of all of the services that behind the meter, in front of the meter, batteries can provide, and the different stakeholders that they provide those services to. So customers, utility, and ISO and RTO services. I'm not going to go into each of these, But I am going to go into a few of them in coming slides. But as you can see, there's a lot of potential here. STEM does currently have the ability to provide all of these services, not usually all at once, but we can do all of them in the appropriate markets. So first, just to touch on the customer side. Again, many of you probably already know this, but behind the meter storage is what it sounds like. It's behind the utility meter, so all of the action is happening on the customer side of that grid connection. So here in this example, we have a building that has its own load. It's a facility that maybe manufactures things or something like that. They have EV charging stations that provide their own kind of unique load shape. They have a PV generation, and they have an energy storage system that's capable of providing backup. So STEM would have an asset on site to monitor all of those different generation and consumption sources, and the battery operations will be dependent on kind of the forecast that we make of what is expected in terms of PV generation, so taking into account the weather, and the building load based on historical data and kind of when they expect the EV charging stations to be most in use. In this case, let's assume that the battery is doing backup in kind of the more critical months. It could either do backup as fully doing backup only, or it could partially do backup and then also contribute to some of these other services. So the other benefits that the battery can provide include utility bill savings, solar self-consumption to avoid solar clipping, and demand charge management or energy arbitrage, as well as participating in demand response utility programs. And last, just want to talk about the benefits that storage can provide to the grid and to utilities. So you can use storage to defer traditional infrastructure investments and deliver energy to the specific locations where it's needed. Transmission and distribution deferral is achieved when you can discharge batteries to reduce peak loads on overloaded circuits and substations. This allows you to defer substation upgrades and the installation of costly new lines. You can also charge batteries to reduce the risk of solar-induced backfeeding of substations with excess solar generation. So STEM is currently doing a project in Michigan where we're working with a utility that wants to pilot the use of storage in terms of avoiding upgrades to an overloaded substation, just as an example of where that might be used. Resource adequacy is also known as capacity, and this is when batteries are called on by the utility to discharge when generation resources are limited. This is an example of that kind of virtual power plant usage. In this case, you're compensated for standby capacity, so basically promising to be present when there might be this need, as well as the energy that you actually deliver. So by participating in day ahead or real-time energy markets, you get paid for that. So one example of this is in California. We participate in the DRAM program. And I think our VPPs last year discharged about 839 different times. So it's definitely something that gets used a lot. And then third, transmission congestion relief. So discharging batteries when locational pricing is high and reducing the need to transmit power into a specific region or zone. Pricing in this case reflects congestion costs as well as energy costs and generates value similar to transmission peak reduction and transmission deferrals. But it's basically when you have a specific spot, and the one that's shown there is Southern California, that has very congested transmission. And two of our largest VPPs are located in Southern California and participate in this kind of program, and they are called pretty much every day. And that little blue blob is basically all of the systems that we have in that area. And that's it.
Well, thank you. So the services that your company's offering, are you agnostic as far as battery manufacturers? Does that matter to you all?
Well, we like good manufacturers, but we're agnostic as far as technology, yeah. We work with a range of different suppliers, and we help to kind of ensure that supply chain for our developers, help size batteries, but mainly we focus on the operation of the asset.
And what about battery chemistry? I assume the VPPs are lithium-ion, but do you all have anything else deployed in addition to lithium-ion?
I don't think we have anything besides lithium-ion at the moment. But as we're agnostic. So as technology changes, I'm sure we will also change what we use.
I think Joti's got a question for you. I'm going to ask one more before he starts. Does it matter if you're in Hawaii and you're a commercial customer? Does it need to be someone who has demand charges that deals with all that? I mean, is that your target customer here?
Well, demand charges certainly do help to make the economics make sense because often they're the largest part of the bill that a customer has to pay. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that scenario. It could be, any other economic value. So participation in a demand response program, if that's valuable enough, if there are upfront incentives that offset the cost of the battery, or solar self-consumption or backup is very valuable to the customer. Those things can also make the whole project make sense.
My question was just to ask if you could profile a typical Hawaii battery bonus, C&I battery bonus project. What would it look like?
That is a good question. I think. Do you have an answer?
I know I have a question.
Oh, great.
On the spot.
I think it would be, you want to look for the same kinds of things as you would with any customer, a load that we can serve by shaving peaks. Obviously, you want a customer who has the ability to either export or shave load in those evening hours from 6 to 8:30. But generally speaking, it's a very valuable program, so there are a lot of different scenarios that might make sense.
Yeah, my question was with the direct pay benefit now with the IRA, are you seeing an uptick in people wanting to just do battery only or maybe after the fact add on for battery storage?
It's definitely something that we're looking at. Yeah, we're working with our we have kind of a large customer base now that we've acquired Also Energy, so they have a lot of contacts in the solar space. So we're looking at those as potential battery storage opportunities as well. But also it's opening up new markets where previously it didn't make sense. Now with the IRA, you can make sense out of building.
There's a few, isn't there? There's standalone storage, there's direct pay, there's energy community. It's made in America.
And you can stack them.
You can get up to 70% actually in ITC.
I'll call you.
Great.
Getting 70% off of anything legally is very tough, so yeah.
Sounds crazy, yeah.
Ashley, thank you very much. Joti, I think we're ready to turn the stage over to you a little bit, and we're going to talk about residential level.
Yeah, I'm happy that we're coming when we're coming because we're a subset of the STEM analysis. And I think we're falling mostly in the T&D and resource adequacy spots of what a residential VPP can do in Hawaii. So the cover slide here shows you what a typical Rising Sun install looks like on Maui. Storage deployment of 2 batteries, setting the scene of bringing the VPP opportunity to the local residential community. What is home battery rewards? We've heard probably more about battery bonus as a HECO-initiated program than we have home battery rewards, but it's another behind-the-meter program, specifically a virtual power plant, in that it's aggregating assets to perform specific functions, services at different times based on the value of those services to the grid and to the home. This current program, which was an RFP won by Swell Energy a few years ago, was at the scale of 81.7 megawatts of combined services across the 3 territories, 6,000 homes assumed based on average battery deployment, per home would be involved in this phase. It's called GSPA2, Grid Services Participation Agreement 2. We saw Shifted speak about GSPA1 yesterday, and this is the next iteration of the GSPA program. There's 3 and 4, and those things are coming forward. So there's going to be many such programs for us to understand and fit together. You can see how this breaks down across the islands. Of course, Oahu has the lion's share on 60 megawatts. Maui has Manini on 8 megawatts, and Hawaii County has 13.2 megawatts of capacity, of a program capacity that homeowners, battery owners can enroll into. And of the Green Mountain Power wheel, we're doing 3 of those functions. And let's talk about those for a brief second. Capacity build, which is to charge batteries during moments of excess generation, too many renewables on the grid, charge everybody's battery that's enrolled in the program and get it off the grid. That's number 1. This should, in fact, on Maui, should enable the windmills to run at more of their proper capacity than they have done in previous years as part of the system design for the microgrid. Capacity reduce is to dump energy from the battery over a 4-hour window in the evening during peak usage time. And then fast frequency response is to assist in frequency regulation events that come up in real time. They're approximately 30-minute windows of performance that can happen at any time. The other 2 are 4-hour windows, and as we jump into the value stacking, you'll be able to see how those roll out. I'm speaking on behalf of Rising Sun. We're a local partner, a local installer here in Hawaii covering 3 islands. The other partners in the program are called out here. To have a look. If you're covered by any of those service providers, reach out, and you have batteries at home, Powerwall batteries at home, reach out to them as to how it may benefit you if you live in Hawaii. The swell value proposition is very similar to the STEM value proposition, but it's just a little bit more compact and limited to these 3 services. At the bottom there in the dark blue, you see the foundational value of energy storage at a home, which to further the STEM piece is around self-consumption primarily. That's why we got batteries in 2016 when NEM ended, because we wanted to save as much of our solar energy as we could to consume it at night and not have to import. So that's the first value. Higher bill savings as a result, and then backup power. Depending on which battery you have and how many that you have, you can have more or less backup. But the VPP is intended to interact with the backup functionality, not to cannibalize it, not to take it off the table, and to allow you to have at least 20% charge in your battery at the end of each performance of grid services if you are called to perform them. Then we have in the yellow the grid services values that are provided by the program on top, stacking on top of your foundational battery value. So it increases the return on investment to the homeowner for making that initial decision to jump into storage. And then in the top, you see that you need a conductor of all of this to happen. And unlike other VPPs or VPP designs, which are based on 24/7 control of a behind-the-meter asset by the aggregator, this one is on demand. So HECO tells Swell, in some moments we're going to need these things, please take control of the fleet. They then ping the fleet, which aggregates the assets that are available into the VPP and conducts their provision of service into the grid. Once that window is closed, they let go, and the control comes back to the homeowner and follows the native load profile of the home or such controls through the consumer app that the homeowner is using. It's an unusual VPP by design, and I think it reflects the unique needs of each of the island grids, in that the specific value to each customer is based on the specific capacity available in each site. And then the aggregator will go off and calculate per homeowner what they should be paid per month for this service and tailor that credit to each homeowner. It's a very complicated process versus something that you might see in Texas or California. It's a simple, $5, $20, everyone gets the same. Doesn't matter how many batteries you've got, just give us some of your power, and you'll get this simple to understand, easy to to model number. In Hawaii, we like to really dig in, and this is fiendishly complicated on the back end. But from the consumer side, as you'll see from some of the testimonials, we end up delivering a pretty simple experience once we can get the asset enrolled. So here are the three pieces. Each Powerwall 2 or later, can provide up to 3 kilowatts of capacity build, about 5 kilowatts of capacity reduce, and about 5 kilowatts of fast frequency response. So these are essentially taken from the customer agreement, which is supplied by the installer partner to the customer if they want to enroll into the project. During peak solar energy periods, your PV system will charge the customer's battery. So you may be expecting that energy to go to your loads. You may be thinking, oh, I can get some CGS Plus credits by letting it go to the grid. Actually, we're going to stick it in your battery, which means you may need to bring some more energy from the grid while we're doing this. So how does that get compensated? Well, that's covered, as we'll see, by the credit that's provided. The opposite for capacity reduce, and then fast frequency response, as we mentioned earlier, is no max events up to 30 minutes, and will only be discharging for 15 to 30 minutes. Each of these three have different state of charge requirements in the underlying battery. And depending on what's needed at what time, the battery is either charged or discharged in preparation for these three things in a way that's quite kind of difficult to follow if you're a consumer. So we try to, in our communications with consumers, just ask them to focus on their monthly bill experience, not open their app and try and figure out what's happening in any particular 1 hour window, although that happens. And so we have customer service representatives who are taking calls all day as to what's going on in my app. I should be using my own solar. Yeah, if you're not, you're being paid not to. So wait till the end of the month and you'll see how that stacks up. At the aggregate level, I know everyone's waiting for this one. This is where we're at last Friday in terms of enrollments. You saw 6,000 homes is the target in the agreement between Swell and HECO. We're at 1,500 at the moment, so about 20% of the way there, 25% of the way there. Not everybody is enrolled and actively participating, but sign the agreement that they want to and are in the process, 1,500. This is a paper agreement at the moment that can be sent to you digitally via DocuSign. We have a public webpage that has a signable contract that anyone who lands there can sign up and go through the process without having to talk to someone. So that's helped us speed up a little bit. But the partners that you saw on the partner slide, all of whom have 1 or 2 people outreaching and running email campaigns, social media campaigns to get their fleet enrolled. 1,500 batteries, 1,300 customers. So far, we've executed 423 events in the fleet statewide. The average monthly bill credit to the customer is $82. If you have 2 batteries, the average monthly bill credit is $150. And in Hawaii, there are some energy hogs out there. We have customers with 8 batteries enrolled, 9 batteries enrolled, 12 batteries enrolled. So they're making some money off of their initial investment. This is a little small, but this is the back page of an enrolled customer's MECO bill. Flip it over. You can see the charges stacked up there. The third green blob from the top shows a demand response credit. Could be called virtual power plant credit for everyone to make sense of it a bit better, but whatever. The machine's set for demand response. And you'll see that customer that month earned $70 in demand response credit. If you look at the top, they had an existing negative bill, oh my goodness, of $35. So they came in 35 to the good. They spent, I think, 65. They got another 70, and they're left with a monthly negative balance of $5, which combined with the previous negative balance, you see this stuff is quite complicated, they have a running negative total of $40, meaning the utility owes them $40. There's a major difference between this and any other previous solar program, is that it'll remove every charge from your bill. The charges stacked up in the middle, current charges, include components that were you in NEM, were you in CGS, or any of the DERS tariffs that would stick regardless of what your energy offset was. The demand response credit or the virtual power plant income wipes that all and leaves them owing you money, which gives you some indication of how important this is as a piece of transition and grid development for us to complete it. So any Hawaii customers who have batteries at home, go online. Who's involved? The contractor. And so we're in outreach with customers. A really important note to make here is that prior to the arrival of the VPP, it was illegal is probably the wrong word, but it was non-compliant to export any energy from your battery. And when you installed your battery, you had to tick a box saying there is no export from this storage unit to the grid, and that would get it approved. Now, untick that box because we need all of those to export to the grid, which means we need to go back to all those as-builts and understand if the system's capacity, its conduits, its conductors, its panel sizes are all capable of exporting at the potential of the battery, which not all of them are. So going forwards, it brings a new design philosophy to the residential storage system. We have Swell as the VP aggregator, which calculates the total capacity and conducts the music using AI, similar to STEM. We have the OEM. In this case, only one battery qualifies for the fast frequency response performance, which is the Tesla Powerwall. Hopefully other batteries will get up to speed. This is not the case for battery bonus. Almost any battery can be enrolled in battery bonus. But for this program, Tesla Powerwall only, Powerwall 2 and later. And of course, we have the utility, which signs off on the modification of all of these DERS agreements into exporting DERS agreements, and then manages the payment of the credit for the customer out of each monthly performance. The enrollment process, this is here to really show who's doing what at what time, but the customer signs an agreement, then it has to pass through 3 hands to get to PTO. That has been taking longer than it's supposed to, but it's a new program and you've got to break stuff to make new programs. So we're in the middle of breaking HECO to enroll all of these customers into their own program. And this is a very happy testimonial that I want to leave us with 2 of these. I'm not going to name any names, but this guy manages one of the utility grids in Hawaii. I am pleased to say that this battery reward program is next level. The enrollment process is straightforward once it gets done, and the value is to provide that it provides to homeowners in the community is significant. I hope that others would decide to participate in this program and help Hawaii with its energy needs. That's a solid testimonial. This one points to some of the pain points or anticipated pain points. Most customers in the first phase of enrollments would say, no, I don't want to do this because I need all the energy that I make. I can't share it. Or my system doesn't cover my whole bill, so how can I share it? Without getting too much into the detail, if the PV charges the battery to full, regardless of the loads, you can benefit from the program. And the value of the program is to not only pay you for being on standby, but it's to subsidize any additional kilowatt hours you have to import so that your battery is in the right state of charge to perform the service. So there's like a gross payment, the cost of having your battery ready is netted out, and then what's left is what you saw on that customer's bill of $70 in that specific month. So this customer gets it. The program works in coordination with our energy users seamlessly. I've not had a situation where I've even noticed or wished that I was not in the program because it has affected my energy usage noticeably. This one will be going in front of every new enrollee who is concerned about sharing. Of course, the utility and Swell do have access to the battery at your home during operation, so there's a data privacy issue that's valid. It requires a smart meter to get the most out of it. But that's the arc of where we're at. We're about 20 to 25% into it. Some of the teething problems have been solved, and now we're seeing an increased kind of velocity in enrollments across the portfolio. Thank you very much. If you live in Hawaii, check it out.
As you may expect, we've got a bunch of questions, and I'm trying to combine a couple of them here. In terms of the program, are you making the dispatch? These are summary of the question. Are you making the dispatch decisions, or is it the utility? Do you have any estimates for a home on Maui in terms of economic return. It's a 7-year payback, it's a 10-year payback, it's a 5-year payback if you're able to tap into these value streams. So those two questions would kind of come in, who's making that decision on export, and realistically, what's the payback in today's world?
No, those are two great questions. The first one does not involve the contractor or installer. This is not in our scope. The utilities RFP procured specific services with a specific value. The bidders bid on a value for those services that they forecast that the grid would need. So they observe the grid's performance, and then they tell the aggregator, at this time we need this, and we're going to pay this. And so the aggregator then says, okay, we're ready. Pings all the batteries, gets them into a little hui, and says, okay, we're going to give you this much of that service. Sorry, we don't have all of it, but we have this much. Here it comes. Or we have more than you need. Here it comes. Off it goes. That all happens under the radar for the customer. What the customer sees in their usage app or in their monitoring on a daily or hourly basis is not going to make a lot of sense to them, because there's a lot of prepare to serve, and those things can all happen through different durations. So they're quite confused about what that all means. It's in fact including the grid operator from Maui. Excuse me.
No, it's okay. I mean, we keep talking about equity. I mean, and you're talking about complexity. And I mean, at some point, are you saying these programs are so complex? I mean, I've got an Oxford-trained economist telling me it's fiendishly complex. So, I mean, is this really, as a matter of equity, something that regular people are going to be able to take advantage of? And I'd love to hear from many of you on that.
That's a key concern, and it was slow to get going. I made the first calls myself. I called like 200 customers, which was actually the first time they've been called in 5 years, so that was a shock too. And in those first 200 calls, they were going on for 2 hours in each case. And the more educated or energy savvy the customer was, the longer they wanted to talk about it. And now those calls are taking 10 minutes, because it's like, don't worry about if you have enough energy. Don't worry if you are concerned that you need to run your hot tub when you think they're going to do this thing. It's covered. You can unenroll. You can't unenroll, by pressing a button, but you can make a request to unenroll, and you can get out of it if it's not working for you. So the trading decisions are made by traders, not by homeowners. On the flip side of it, the ROI depends on how much capacity you have at home. And on the public websites, I think all of the installers, including Swell themselves, I don't know if HECO has it, but all of our websites show a basic 5-year income stream, which is taxable, from the utility if you enroll. Average payback on a PVS system in Hawaii with 2 batteries is between 5 and 6 years. This can shave off another 2.5 years if executed at the right time, when the investment is incepted, and you continue to enroll in it. My sense is it'll get rolled out for another 10 years. And because there's some competition for capacity between battery bonus and home battery rewards, that home battery rewards will have to sweeten their deal in Maui, in Big Island. There may be some upfront money around to get those services procured under the RFP. But it's very much a deal sweetener. It works really well for the second home customer who's not experiencing self-consumption in the same way that an owner-occupied home is. And it's a pretty whiz-bang add-on.
Did you guys have any other thoughts? We're going to go on to another topic shortly, but is it all just getting too complex? I mean, as far as equity and fairness, and any thoughts from either of you?
Yeah, it does seem somewhat complex. I mean, if it's working for customers, though, it is. But it's one of the concerns we always have regarding equity is, I think it's easy to find people who are somewhat energy savvy and want to be involved and have, maybe the disposable income to participate in some of these. But what about the folks that are kind of too busy with daily life to really sit down and learn about this stuff and don't necessarily have the disposable income? What do we do for them? We think about it a little bit differently on the island of Kauai, since we are a co-op. Essentially, the ratepayers do own the cooperative. We don't have external outside shareholders, so We see the projects we're doing, like the West Kauai Energy Project, as projects that benefit all the ratepayers, no matter what type of situation they're in. So we look at it a little bit differently, but we do tend to we've got a lot less programs, I would say, than Hawaiian Electric companies, and we've just tried to keep it somewhat simple. We have very limited bandwidth. We're a small company, only about 140 employees, so we try to keep things kind of just really simple, no time of use rates, at least as far as now. And the battery program, if you install battery, the benefit is because you don't want to sell to us at wholesale your excess solar and then buy from us at retail at night. So you look at that delta, and if it makes sense, then you install a battery.
You guys had battery bonus at the utility scale before anyone else did, right? In Kapaa.
Just one thought on this from kind of the policy perspective. In my experience, a lot of times over-engineering a policy will result in a lot of unintended consequences. So my opinion is that the simpler the better when it comes to incentivizing behavior. A simple economic or market signal is generally the way to go, instead of imposing a bunch of rules and regulations that people have to comply with to achieve what the objective is. Just try and boil it down to what does that look like if you just make it an economic incentive, and then people will follow that.
Well, thanks. And we're trying to cover so much ground today. We need to move on, and we're going to go ahead and play 2 videos for you all. We're going to go ahead and put these up on the big screen. We'll let you all see what we want to show you on safety. We talked before about benefits, and the idea here is we're going to talk a little bit about risks, and mainly risks that really haven't been picked up in Hawaii in the same way. So we'll go ahead and run that now for you.
More than a week after Hurricane Ian swept through Florida, there's a dangerous problem involving electric cars. First responders say flooded out electric vehicles are now catching fire, and putting the flames out isn't so simple. News Nation senior national correspondent Brian Inton joins us live. And Brian, not only are these batteries catching fire, they can also reignite.
Yeah, Nicole, that's the big problem, is the firefighters will respond, put the battery fires out, and then the fires will reignite, and the firefighters have to keep coming back over and over again. The issue is the batteries on many of these Tesla models are up underneath the car, so you can imagine with the storm surge during the hurricane, many of the cars were totally covered. The salt water corroded the batteries and started causing fires. Hurricane Ian was a once-in-a-century storm causing flooding like never before on the west coast of Florida.
Another problem with EVs.
And the hurricane caused something else never seen before: exploding electric cars. The electric vehicles were submerged during Ian, and the lithium-ion batteries flooded with salt water from the storm surge. Now they are catching fire. What's making these electric vehicles basically explode?
So you have the stored energy in the batteries. So just because the vehicle is submerged doesn't mean that energy is discharged in any way. Anytime you mix, electrical components and salt water together, it is a recipe for disaster.
The North Collier Fire District had to cut open a Tesla and spray down the battery that was on fire. Just this fire department says they've had it happen 4 times in 1 week.
I think that as we've moved over to electric vehicles, this is the first time we've seen anything like this.
The issue is the batteries in the car can reignite over and over again. Florida State Fire Marshal Jimmy Petronis says it takes a lot of water and foam to put them out for good. With the EV technology being so new, do you think we should be concerned?
I do. So look, it was a natural disaster. And we learn something from every single natural disaster. We truly do. And what we are learning from this one is EVs are not compatible with salt water. When they become inoperable, when they have shorts, when they have corrosion issues, and they're inoperable, and they're actually in your garage, as a lot of cars were because of this storm surge event, they become now a fire hazard for your house.
And the state fire marshal telling people on the west coast of Florida, if their Teslas or electric cars were flooded and are inside their garage right now inoperable, to actually get a tow truck and have those cars pulled out into the driveway or push them out. It's not worth the risk that they might catch fire while they're in your house. We reached out to Tesla today, but did not get a response. Nicole?
Yeah, I love that he said, we're learning something from each storm, and certainly this is a good lesson. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider, and don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.
You'll see we put up a slide here, and let me give you a few numbers first. So in our research, we found there were 12 incidents where EVs caught fire in the 3 counties that were most affected by that hurricane. And we don't know the exact number of EVs that were potentially affected, but round number, it looks like it might have been around 5,000. So you got a statistic, statistically, it's not random. I mean, we're getting 12 out of 5,000. And the reason we're highlighting this here in Hawaii right now is because so many of the counties are looking at EVs from a resilience perspective and assuming that after a big storm event, that these EVs can be recharged and that they can really help support the recovery effort. We've given 4 options here. And what we're saying is we just played for you one of the stories that came out. But what you'll find is that no one really agrees on what's happening here. Is this something where we've given you 4 choices here? Prior damage to these specific cars left them vulnerable. And what we're saying there is, some kind of physical impact. That was what's allowing salt water to penetrate. Option 2, it's not the ocean water itself, it's contaminants in the salt water. And here, you've seen after a storm surge, you get oil, you get chemicals, it's not just salt water. Option 3, manufacturing defects in the battery cells themselves. And option D, it's not really when the water comes in as water, it's after when the salt dries and creates a bridge for an electric current. In the app, we do have a poll function, and so we're going to ask, and if any of you are hopefully willing to give us your thoughts here, what's really going on? I mean, are we seeing something that is going to be an ongoing problem, or are we just seeing a moment in time when the technology is early? But again, if you'd like to go through on the app, we've got one other thing we're going to go through, but we'll give you the results right here at the end, hopefully. But again, what's the best explanation of these EV fires? What's really causing it? So that's the question that we'd like your answer to. And then we have one other kind of educational video that we're going to go ahead and play for you. And this one comes from the fire department in New York. When we talk about EV fires, like the ones you saw here, for the most part, we're talking about property damage. And what's so different about the EV scooter fires that we're going to talk about in this next video is people are actually getting killed. So again, Tesla EVs, there certainly have been issues with fires, but people aren't getting killed. We're now going to play a video that you can see on the Fire Department of New York's website, and let's go ahead and roll that for folks.
Fires caused by lithium-ion batteries have increased dramatically in New York City with deadly consequences. These rechargeable batteries are found in electric bikes and scooters, cars, laptops, tablets, phones, and common household devices. Damaged or unstable batteries and improper charging, storage, or disposal can cause the batteries to overheat, leading to an explosive, aggressive fire that spreads rapidly, can reignite, and is challenging to extinguish. Lithium-ion battery fires have caused deaths, serious injuries, and devastating damage to property around the city. Be FDNY smart when using any device powered by lithium-ion batteries. Do not store your bike or scooter near your doors or windows, blocking your exits in case of fire. Do not leave devices unattended when charging, or charge them overnight. Only purchase and use devices that are listed by a qualified testing laboratory, such as UL. Do not charge a device under your pillow, on your bed, or on a couch. Only use the manufacturer's power cords or batteries made specifically for the device. Keep batteries or devices at room temperature and away from direct sunlight and anything flammable. If a battery overheats or you notice an odor, change in shape or color, leaking, or odd noises from a device, discontinue use immediately. Putting lithium-ion batteries in the trash or recycling is illegal and dangerous. Take them to a battery recycling location or visit nyc.gov/batteries for proper disposal instructions.
We don't have time to really talk in depth about that, but I do want to leave you with a couple thoughts. All of you are viewed as energy experts by the people in your families and neighbors. And this is an issue where most people really aren't thinking about where's your recharge going on. An awful lot of these scooters and e-bikes get charged near the exits and most people really haven't been thinking about that as a big risk. So what I would like to leave you all with as experts, as you know, people that give advice, is really look at where people are doing the charging and if it's blocking an exit, and really look hard. You know, a lot of us are used to kind of a mix and match equipment with our phone chargers. And it looks like, at least at this moment in time, that one of the risk factors that people are identifying is, you know, broken equipment and kind of mix and match chargers. So again, our goal here is to just kind of make you aware of something that's got a lot more publicity in parts of the mainland than it did here. And frankly, it's partly about high-rise living too. So we have used our time, and I apologize for not being able to cover any of this in more detail, but we do want to leave you with that. We really want to thank all of our panelists here, and these are complicated topics. I encourage all of you, if you're interested, to find these folks and ask them for more details. So again, we really appreciate the time you spent with us. I know we've tried to cover an awful lot of complicated information quickly, but we really appreciate all of you coming.
One thing, obviously the lithium-ion batteries that catch on fire are very serious and, you know, scary and dangerous, but the kinds of batteries that we are all working with are held to a very high safety standard, and there are many different levels of safety, from manufacturing to installation to, you know, fire safety in the room or wherever, you know, the battery is installed. Just want to make sure people know that this is not, you know, something that happens all the time with the kind of grid scale batteries we're talking about.
Yeah, don't drive your Tesla into the ocean. And don't plug your scooter in the doorway.